Jose Shorty Torres is back on the show, this time as he prepares to face Sean Santella September the 24th at Brave 42. Jose, how are you, sir?
Everything's great, man. Besides being a little hot right now, if people don't know, I am in my little portable sauna in the corner of my basement, kind of creeping down. It's funny, I scared my mother. I was like, hey, can you come down here and turn on the light? I'm doing an interview. She's walking down. She's like, oh my God. I was like, sorry. Hey, how you doing? So it's a crazy time, man, but I'm doing what I need to do. It's, because of COVID, the public saunas are closed. So I was like, so I would go work out at a public gym because they have all the materials I want to use. And then I would just immediately rush back home to jump in the sauna. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, well, I like we were saying before we went live, I'm really intrigued by that. I usually use the sauna as well when I go to the gym, and I can't now, so I've been jonesing for it. So I think I'm going to follow in your footsteps and go get one myself. Tell me, this camp, man, what has it been like? Obviously, no longer at ATT. I understand you're training primarily with Dean Thomas now and Jillian Robertson. Just run me through what it's been like.
As much as I don't want to, yes, I am sadly training with those guys. And I'll be back with them very, very soon, sometime this week, going down to Florida. But it's been a crazy time. And I say this in so many ways, besides 2020 just being like a cyclone of whatever's going to come next. Dean and Jillian, man, have given me so much more of a different opportunity, a different environment, and just a lot more positivity in my life. American Top Team, a phenomenal gym. And they have so many athletes. I mean, so many phenomenal athletes and great coaches. The only problem is you have 100 professional athletes, 10 coaches, you're very limited. Your time is going to be very scarce, especially when you have people like Joanna, Amanda Nunes, Dustin Poirier, Mazda, all these, highlight reel guys that are making tons of money. It's really hard to kind of put your foot in there and be like, hey, does anybody want to watch me a little bit? So, Dean was really the person to kind of focus on the outcasts, and Jillian and myself are the main two that really work together. And she's been working with Dean since she was 16. So that's almost about 10 years now. And, because I'm really close to her, he's like, yeah, come on by. And we've been, Dean and I have been together for about 2 years now, but this is the first really, really full camp that we've gone all the way through. And honestly, man, during COVID, that's all we did. I decided to move in with him. Sadly, whether he wants it or not, I'm his roommate. And we just train in the garage, man. The kitchen, the firm, whatever you want to call it. We train in the garage. We don't need 40,000 square feet. We don't need anything fancy. Him and I grew up in different neighborhoods, but pretty much around the same type of environment where you don't really have anything. So being able to work with one-on-one with a coach, it's that's so, he's I don't know if he's, a Hall of Famer per se, but he's one of those guys that deserves being a Hall of Fame. He deserves all the things he's been able to accomplish because he is so smart in this sport. I mean, he's coaching Tyron Woodley, this weekend, and he's coaching so many more guys. So it's being able to have that experience and just kind of have that, he honestly reminds me of my head coach, Master Bob Shermer, and that reminds me of two people, Cus D'Amato, who coached Mike Tyson, and Mickey and Rocky. It's like, I'm catching the chicken every single day, or trying to catch the chicken. Like he's really been there, and I think this COVID-19 has actually helped me prepare that much more for this fight.
Well, that's awesome to hear. I've had the pleasure of interviewing Dean on a couple of occasions. He's an absolute wonderful guy to speak with. I also talked to Jillian recently as well. What is it like to live with Dean, though? Is he a neat guy? Is he, easy to live with outside of training?
He's really easy to live with, and the reason why is because you don't see him. You don't see him at all. It's like I kind of have the house to myself because the guy, he is always doing podcasts, he's doing interviews, he's doing the radio show, he's doing whatever possible, or if not, he's in the garage training myself for people, so honestly, the guy is always to himself. Like he comes out, he'll give me literally, because he's technically an introvert, even though he's always out there, he's an introvert. So he'll give me 20 minutes of his time, like, here, let me kind of do some community service, Shorty, talk to him a little bit, let him vent, have some fun. And then, cool, I'm going back to my room to do a podcast interview, whatever the case may be. So, or some type of rehearsal for an acting gig he has. Like the guy is well-rounded and doing so much and living his best life because, again, he gets to coach myself, Jillian. He gets, whether he likes that or not, he gets to coach so many more people. He gets to work with some of the highest people in the world. He gets to travel, gets to be with Dana White, going to Abu Dhabi, and, everything paid for and free, and being on a radio show, just acting and doing whatever. So, being able to do that, man, he's so easy to live with, and he's very simple. I know, like, anytime I want to get him a gift or, just kind of surprise him, like, hey, I'm going to the grocery store. You want anything? No, I'm still going to get you something. He's so easy to get. Like, he's a big Smuckers, PB&J fan, pretzels, stuff like that. So and he's so inexpensive. It's perfect. But no, man, he is a really, really good person to be with and be around, and honestly, just having in my small circle.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. Now you mentioned Tyron Woodley. He's got a big fight coming up this weekend against Colby Chaos Covington. Have you seen much of Tyron in camp? How is he looking, if so, and what's your prediction for that fight?
The crazy thing was because Tyron was in camp and Tyron, when he was getting ready for Kamaru Usman, he went to Rufus Sport. And Dean was gonna go up there. He's like, Jillian and Shorty both have fights. Come on up there with me, and that so we did. So for me, I stayed up there for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and Jillian stayed up there for about 2 weeks. So we got to train with Tyron, see him work, and we saw him kind of spread himself thin. Like he's always training. Like this guy is on the clock 24/7. But I think that was the problem is that he was trying to spread himself a little too thin for a lot of people, especially with his music and everything. And he was just trying to multitask a little bit too much during a very, very important fight because I really do believe he has all the capability of being the best welterweight in the world and beating all these guys. It just so happened that he didn't show up that day, and I think it's because his mind was everywhere. This camp has been literally training, training, training. He's been doing 2 or 3 sessions back to back to back. Masvidal's come in to help. Oh man, I can't remember his name. Is it Gerard? Gerard coming down to help, and or Gerald, and all these guys, Duke, Dean, and just him giving his information and talking to me between practices or right after practice. It's been fun watching it, but it's been awesome just watching him and learning from him as he kind of vents out publicly because he's made his circle very, very small, and I've kind of done that myself, and it's really because of him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to spread myself too thin. I felt like I was doing that. I felt like I was losing love for the sport and so many things. And I'm only 28, and he's, a few years older than me towards the end of his career. So, for him to be performing at his peak right now, I'm really excited for this fight. He's taking this 100% personal. So this fight is a big, big thing to him.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's like Christmas Eve, for this weekend for me, for this fight card. It's a great one, especially with that headlining it as well. You mentioned, his mind maybe being all over the place and whatnot. And I wanted to ask you about yourself because I know it's touchy subject and whatnot, but I understand, you did lose your father fairly recently. And what can I say other than I'm sorry to hear that? I lost my dad 2 years ago to cancer, and I still struggle with it. It's still something that I struggle with on a daily basis. I'm just wondering, how you've been able to get through that and kind of stay focused and positive on a day-to-day basis.
The hardest part was my dad was a goon, man. He never taught us to grieve. Because he was in a gang, he had plenty of people dying him, but we never saw my dad cry. So my dad was always, the hard ass, always beating us up, whether we wanted to get beat up or not, whether he was teaching us or we were in his way. Like my dad was a goon in literally every aspect. And so I didn't know how to mourn. So immediately after he passed, I'm like, well, I don't know what else to do. I'm just going to keep on training. And little I know, some of the ways that I was grieving was I was overtraining because it's my time away from, the world reality. And then I'm hurting myself. And then by the time I got to fight week, my body just wasn't like I was so emotionally broken down, and everyone reminded me at Worlds like, "Hey, your condolences, condolences, condolences," which I definitely appreciate and respect. But it's just like, man, I just want to fight and cry right after. Like I don't even want to fight anymore. I just want to cry. And that was kind of the same thing when I fought Alex Perez. If people don't know, I was in a 34 fight winning streak, and I was kind of going like on a mental warfare with myself and many things behind the scenes. That by the time I got to that fight, it was like Tyron Woodley against Kamaru. Like I was physically there, but mentally, like I saw everything in slow motion. But for some reason, it was like, "Come on, go! No, oh, okay, we're just gonna let this happen." And honestly, I felt like that was gonna happen back in November when I was ready to fight around when my father passed, and I just backed out of the fight. I'm not gonna do this. I don't want to get hurt and be in a very, very bad place, especially in my career too. So I was like, let me go home, take care of myself. And then getting ready for this fight, March 28th, COVID hits 8 days before. Brazil shuts down. It's like, dude, I haven't been paid since last year, April. I need money. We don't make much money in the sport, especially when you're starting to invest in yourself, which I really am. And I was like, man, I need to start practicing more and really focusing and think about it. A year and 4 months until my fight against Sean Santella. This is the longest training camp I've ever had. And it's not because of physical injury. It's because of mental injury. So it's been a long road coming back. But again, Jillian, Dean, the places we've traveled, the people I've been talking to, and the small circle that I've had around me. Honestly, if it weren't for them, I probably would have stopped fighting because that was a huge lack of motivation. Only at 28 years old, kind of going, man, I've been doing self sport. I just don't want to do this anymore.
Mm.
Uh, but it's been a really good journey, man. And I've been positive. It's kind of like looking at 2020. It's like when you see something new, you're just kind of like, huh? Oh well, it is what it is. I guess we're dealing with this now too. So that's kind of like what I'm dealing with today, where it's just like something else bad happens. I got to figure out a way to grieve with it or partake with it and just kind of go. It is what it is. Keep on walking forward. So I'm trying to get my feet out of the mud. But one big thing that I do still think about, especially with your father having cancer. We don't know what my father had. He just started losing weight out of the 5 years, and then we kept on testing him for stuff, and he always came back negative. And it was one of those things where you look at cancer patients that I know, and you're just like, you look at my father, and it's like, I think you have cancer, but no one's tested him for it, and they're just like, oh, have a good day. It's like, so it's one of those things where it's, you have those regrets, you have those things, but again, it sadly is what it is, and you have to keep on walking forward. And I know that's exactly what they all would want us to do.
Mhm. Yeah, well, no, very well said. And again, my condolences. I know how hard that is to go through. I'm happy to see that you're in a better place now. You mentioned that loss to Alex Perez. Is there one thing that you can take away outside of the mental aspect of that fight? Like, if you were to get another shot at him down the line, how would that fight be different?
Honestly, I don't know how that fight would be different. The thing I would say is you would see 100% me. And the crazy thing is, especially with this sport, that same outcome could have happened even with 100% me. I'm not going to give a percentage because I'm not going to belittle his performance because he played a great game plan. But it's funny because he texted me like a month after the fight. And he goes, hey, man, if you don't mind me asking, what was your game plan against me? I go, honestly, what you did to me was kind of just maul you until, you gave out. I was like, what was your game plan against me? He goes, well, I wanted you to shoot, but you never did. I was like, hey, how about next time you make me shoot so you can follow your game plan? And the fight can go longer. So it's one of those things where, he was a better man that day, and there's nothing I can do about it. Same thing with the Tyron Woodley, Kamaru Usman. I think he was a better man that day. Could it be different the next time? I 100% hope so. I do really believe so. But until then, I have Sean Santella and other people in front of me. So it's a journey until then. I hopefully get to redeem that fight. My two losses in my whole MMA career, out of I think 36 fights, 37 fights, I've only lost twice. Haven't been able to redeem both of them because sadly, either different promotions or people retired. So you just gotta live with it. And honestly, I think Alex Perez did teach me a lot, and it humbled me because you go on a 34 fight winning streak, you start to believe you can do a lot of things that champions could do. And I'm not saying I'm not a champion, but I was still very early in my career when I started to think the way I was thinking. And it wasn't appropriate at the time, and it really has changed my mindset. I know we're tough, but just like Mike Tyson said, everyone has a game plan until you get punched in the mouth, especially if you get punched in the mouth 103 times in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So it's changed my perception of the sport and even the way I train and fight.
Yeah. Well, I got to get your take too, just on your release from the UFC. They were supposed to go away with the division completely, but apparently that's not the case. You just had Figueiredo beat Benavidez for the title. I mean, how can you wrap your head around this? Like, you probably should still be in the UFC, and now they were getting rid of people, and they still have the division.
Oh, I want accolade wise, I 100% still believe I should and deserve to be in the UFC, but sadly, life doesn't work that way. I pissed off the wrong people by saying I think speculating that the flyweight division was going to be at a demise, and I was right. So be it. Yay me. But it's the fact of the UFC wants to do what they want to do, and fighters in general, flyweights or not, we're all expendable. So you look at George Masvidal saying, "Oh, we're independent contractors, but I can't fight for another promotion, but I can only fight for you whenever you tell me I could fight." So it becomes a struggle with that, and that's why I'm really happy with Brave and all these other promotions coming out of the woodworks, really trying to highlight these fighters and pay them remarkably well. Like I was talking to Duke about Sergio's contracts, and I'm not going to put out his personal information, but he's making a lot more in Bellator because they respect him, and that's at a different weight class. So it's just like UFC is not all of that. They're an amazing promotion. They're obviously at where they're at because of all the things they've done, but they're having a lot of problems when it comes to the fighters fighting back. And I believe this is the best time to create a fighters union and the fighters strike to ask for more pay, because we put our lives on the line every single day in training and the fights, all that stuff. And we're getting paid 10-10, 15-15, but we still have to pay our own medicals. We don't have any health insurance. We have to pay for all this stuff. And it's like, dude, most of this money goes back to you guys anyways. So it's a crazy thing. they're just kind of re-signing flyweights right now, and that's amazing. Good for them. My past opponent, Amir Albazi, just got signed to the UFC. He just won his first fight against Malcolm Gordon. Amazing, congratulations. But they cut some of the best people in the world. Look at Dustin Ortiz. I might be fighting him in the next round if I get past Sean. And Dustin Ortiz was number 3 in the world on a 3-fight winning streak, and he lost to Benavidez, the title contender. So it's like, and he didn't get beat. He lost by a decision. So it's just kind of like, hey man, this is just really, really unfair. But the UFC again wants to do what they want to do. I believe they finally are starting to get the respect for the flyweights. But I definitely know, especially right now because of COVID, these fighters aren't getting paid the way they should. So it's a crazy time.
Yeah. Do you expect to be back in the UFC at some point? I know right now you have your eyes on the Brave FC Gold, winning this tournament, but do you feel ultimately they're going to contact you and you will end up back in the promotion?
If UFC ever does contact me again, I want to know that they respect us. Especially with me, it was like a bad breakup. It's like I got cheated on all the way through, but I was still trying, and out of nowhere, they're like, later. So I'm just sitting here in the dust like, oh, I still need a ride home. It's just one of those things, poor analogy, but it's one of those things that's like, dude, they treated me like crap. I had accolades that no other person in any weight class has ever had coming into the UFC. Look at Conor McGregor, 14-2, Cage Warriors double weight class champ. I did it at 5-0 and defended a belt with guys with higher records than what Conor McGregor did at 14-2. I did it 3 times as fast. So it's like, you want that in the flyweight division. You want all my wins at flyweight were by knockout. So it's like, you want this at the division, and then you bring me in on a 9-day and 20-day notice in about 45 days. That's not fair at all. I cut 54 to 56 pounds in 45 days. Like, dude, that's why I was so mentally drained and broken and so many more things behind the scenes. So it's like, culmination of that is it's like Cus D'Amato said, it's one of those things that, like, without the proper machine or proper operator, the machine's not going to work. I want to make you believe you can fly, but if you're not going to believe me, then you're not going to believe in yourself, and that's really how it is. So, man, if they ever called me, they definitely have to show me that they respect me. Brave right now is the one that's on my mind. They show they respect me, especially with my father passing, me having to back out of the fight, and all these things. They're really taking care of me, and I appreciate it. This is a fighter's promotion, and that's why I really do appreciate Brave so much.
Do you feel like these smaller promotions like Brave or even like a Bellator are really starting to gain on the UFC? I mean, look at Bellator just signing that deal with CBS Sports. They're going to be able to televise their events live here moving forward. So do you feel like the gap is kind of getting smaller as the MMA grows?
I think it will naturally. I think the UFC will sadly always still be ahead by a little because they've been in the game so long. They've already, it's kind of like, Coke and Pepsi started years apart, but what if they started 30 years different? It's like some guy really has to catch up, and they're still learning through the process. Scott Coker spent a lot of money on getting these fighters, some of them older and some of them a little more has-been, but it's still bringing publicity to Bellator. Now bringing it to CBS, everything right now is in a streaming service, but the main public are still used to cable, whatever used to be on Spike TV, FX, like, UFC used to have. So having the CBS that's pretty much basic cable that everyone owns is going to be an extremely huge thing. And eventually I hope, both ONE FC, Brave, KSW, Rise, and all eventually do the same thing and start integrating into the US as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I got to get your take on your last performance over Amir. You got a big win there. How pleased are you? What's the takeaway from that one?
I'm happy I won. I was still going through a lot of crap in that fight, man, where, and between, I guess you and I in the audience, for 3 years, I've been going through a somewhat of a depression because you think about it, I was doing all these things to be this Titan FC champ, to kind of put more accolades that no one's ever done before. And I do that, and the UFC gives me 10 last-minute calls pretty much saying, like, I don't care what you do, I don't care what you've done, because you're a flyweight, I don't care. You either take this offer or you don't. And I was always saying no because I'm like, either I can't because I had a broken hand, torn MCL, or it's too last minute of a fight. And it's like, I'm not even training. The Jared Brooks and Alex Perez fight wasn't even training and received ultimatums to take those fights. And it's like, I don't know how many times you guys are going to keep on calling, especially with the flyweight division going down. I was hoping to be the savior of it, but I sadly ended up being one of the demise. So it's one of those things that I don't know what's up with the UFC. I don't know what they're going to do next to the flyweight division, but with Amir Albazi, I went in there with a crippled mindset, and I went in there kind of thinking like, oh, this is a different promotion. It's not the UFC, so it's not the same caliber of fighter. Amir Albazi was 11-0 at the time, and I dropped him 3 times in the first round and I got too cocky. I got too arrogant. And then the second round, I slipped up and I let him take my back, even though there wasn't any damage. I was just like, oh, well, damn, that round's his. And the third round, I just kind of went wild, but not in the most appropriate way. And even though I won by unanimous decision. There's no reason I shouldn't have been able to finish that fight, and that's something I definitely do regret, and that's something that I'm going to work on, especially for this fight coming up.
Yeah, well, that's exciting. Again, that was a great performance in my opinion. I thought you looked really good against a great opponent against Amir. Now, I watched you on UFC Fight Pass for your Titan FC commentary, man. You did a really good job. How excited are you about that? And is this something that you're hoping when you're done fighting, you can transition into doing commentary?
The craziest thing is I never liked fighting. For me, I just always did it because my father loved it. My brother loved it. My mom loves it. So I've always pushed through and kind of try to use it as motivation for them to keep on doing what they always wanted to do. I just ended up being talented enough to do it or having the opportunity to do it. So for me, I always say I'm the least talented in my family. I just had the right opportunity and people around me to push me towards the right extent, the right place. But for me, man, commentating, talking, and just having fun of talking about what I watch is easy to do, especially since I've been doing the sport since I was 4. I know a lot about the sport, definitely not everything, but enough to be able to get by and explain to the average person what's happening so they can understand. And doing commentating for Titan, for Brave, for the IMAF, and so many more promotions has been a really huge thing. That was my ultimate goal in the UFC, is to be a Paul Felder, Dominic Cruz, a DC, to eventually do fights. And between fights, be a commentator, a sports analyst, have fun that way. Right now, we actually might be signing a deal with Brave doing that as well. But COVID and their shows have been all in Europe. I'm an American. Sadly, there's an American travel ban to European countries. So maybe once that's all over, I sign a contract with Brave CF and go from there. But until then, I got to focus on what's next, and that's the fight.
Yeah, well, again, you do a great job, so I had to mention that. Now, this fight is going to be is it Bahrain? Did I say that?
Yeah.
Okay. How long of a trip is that? I mean, I think that's going to be a long flight, right?
So my flight total is about 28 hours. Yeah.
Wow.
No, I lied. It's about 18 hours. And the crazy thing is, you're losing a day because, again, you're going like forward in time. And then you have to fly those 18 hours. So I'm losing a day. So, again, that's why I'm in the sauna so early, trying to get as low as possible until Friday when I leave. When I land on Saturday night, I can land at a lower weight or an appropriate weight instead of being like, it's a whole day of travel. Oh, now I'm high on water weight because the plane, makes you hold water. Oh, maybe I had airplane food or whatever the case may be. So it's trying to get as low as possible for that flight, and then fight week trying to be as comfortable as possible and get acclimated to the time.
Who's making the trip with you to be in your corner?
The crazy thing is my head coach, Master Bob Shermer, has he needs ankle surgery, and him being 65 years old, he's on a walker, man, can barely walk, so he can't go. Dean Thomas is doing some stuff with Dana White for, I believe, looking for a fight like UFC Unfiltered. So sadly, he's not able to go either. So I'm taking my C chick, my side chick, Nutrition. He's a good guy, man, and I feel comfortable enough. D feels comfortable enough to send me by myself. And that's saying a huge thing. Is Dean doesn't do certain things for a reason. Like this one, he's like, I'm letting you go by yourself. Besides payday for himself, he's like, I'm letting you go by yourself because I know you're ready for this fight. I don't see it going past the first round. It's just you mentally. If you can do what you want to do and need to do, then I don't see you having a trouble with this guy or any guy per se. But he has to be mentally there. And for me, Nutrition and I have worked my whole professional career, and especially with not being able to make weight for about a year and a half almost, he's probably the best next guy in line to be there with me. And right now, we're only having one corner go, so that's the hardest part as well. It's not the UFC where they get to allow 3. They only get 1, so Nutrition's my guy.
Okay. All right. Well, it's good that you have someone that has been in your corner for as long as he has that's making the trip with you. As far as the testing goes and the quarantining and all that, have they told you what that's going to be like once you get there?
They haven't told me what it's going to be like when I get there. I did get tested for COVID today because accidentally I read the contract wrong. I thought I needed to take the test a couple days before I flew out. It's actually, I need the test results a couple days before I fly out. So I'm like, oh man, I need the test results now then. So I had to find a free clinic. And dude, America sucks. A bunch of these places, they're like, oh, we're privately owned, so the test isn't free. It's $250. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to find this free clinic. There has to be one around here. And I found one, but it was like an hour and a half wait. But there was only 5 people working, So it's a crazy thing how the states are belittling it, even though we have the biggest numbers in the world.
Mhm. Yeah, we're living in unprecedented times right now. It truly is crazy. Now, once you get in there and you get this win, are you going to make Sean get rid of his nickname, and you're going to have the only Shorty nickname here?
No, man, Shorty's for life. And honestly, I always say it's a battle of the Shorties, Shorties from the '80s, because he's like, Bebop and Rocksteady from Ninja Turtles. It's like he's a Shorty Rock, I'm Shorty G. My dad, his nickname was Shorty G, so I'm technically a little Shorty G, and I'm coming out to this fight as an homage to my father. So I don't know if you ever watched the Warriors, but back in the day, the gangs wore jackets to symbolize what gang they were part of. I'm gonna walk out with my father's, gang sweater on my shoulder, and on my arm as a reputation that I'm going to war. And really, just for him, it's a battle of three shorties really for this. So it's I think it's a perfect time and a perfect homage to my father.
Yeah, that's really cool. As far as the matchup goes, where do you feel like you're going to hold the biggest advantage in this fight, and what's your prediction?
I do predict this fight ending as fast as possible. I can't say when. I'm hoping in the first round. The reason why I say that is because throughout this year and a half, year and a quarter, whatever, it's been a very mentally straining time for me. And I'm at a very good place mentally now. I'm very strong, but I want to be able to show the world, and especially myself, that I still want to do this. And at 28, I'm now barely entering my prime, and I've entered a great team with a great environment, great atmosphere. I know I can do this, and Shorty Rock is definitely that guy to really test me. It's not an easy fight, but I say it's going to end in the first round because he's going to get everything I have for 15 minutes, and if he can't last for 3, he's not going to last for 4 or 5 in the rest of that time.
What does he do best? Is there one area where you feel like he might push you, or do you feel like you're going to be able to outclass him regardless?
I do believe he's an Amir Albazi type of fighter where, he can strike, but his primary game is on the ground, off of his back. He's very good off it. He's very comfortable off of it. But he's older and he's a veteran, so he's smarter than Amir Albazi. And I say that respectfully. Amir Albazi's great, but this guy has had almost 20 more fights experience. So when it comes to fighting guys, Sean is supposed to have lost so many more fights, but he's beaten phenomenal fighters, that are trying to get into UFC or trying to make their way back to UFC because he is just such a veteran. So for me, I can't take this fight lightly. If I mess up, he's gonna armbar me, he's gonna triangle me, he's gonna Umar or Gogo plot me. Like he's gonna hold me down in position or even just take my back and hold it. I don't fear a submission, but I fear that I can't be in trouble situations, and that's the best thing possible is to be afraid in a fight, and that's something that drives me and it helps me enjoy the challenge that much more. So for me, it's going to be a stand-up versus a ground guy, but you don't know, man. I have my fair share of submissions as well. So if he goes down there and he wants to stay down there, Dean and I are going to show him something new.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but based on what you're saying, to me, it seems like you feel like you're going to knock him out on the feet.
I'm gonna knock him on the feet, and I 100% want a highlight reel walk off KO. That's what I want. I don't know what it's gonna be. I don't know if it's a head kick, which I can't get my leg that high. He's short, so that's a good thing. But man, I have power in my hands. I'm fast, and I know I have the condition. He is gonna die out against me if it goes that far. He's not gonna make it conditioning wise, and that's where I strive.
A win here sets up a potential fight with Dustin Ortiz next. Give me your just take on that fight.
Yeah, I don't want to look past Sean Santella, but Dustin Ortiz is fighting Marcelo Dur, a striker versus a wrestler primarily. Both of them have their strengths. Again, one being the primary striker, one being the ground fighter. But Dustin Ortiz, again, a veteran, fought both styles, has knocked out strikers before, has dropped strikers before. His biggest win that I saw was Mateus Nicolau, in the UFC, where he knocked out a very good striker who just knocked out or beat up Louis Smolka for 3 straight rounds. Dustin Ortiz is a phenomenal athlete, being ranked number 3 in the world at the time is saying something. It's for a reason. So this tournament isn't like just some random flyweights they're putting together. It's top 30 guys in the world, and I believe I did an interview yesterday. Somebody said I was 21, which is awesome. But then you have Dustin Ortiz that's still ranked top 5. So I'm facing some top-notch competition. That's something I'm really, really excited about.
Yeah. Well, again, I can't wait to watch you here this next fight against Sean. I'm really intrigued about this and what is next for you. I really appreciate the time, man. It's been far too long since I've spoken to you before, so we'll have to do it again soon. Before I let you go, if there's any social media you want to plug or anyone you want to thank, the floor is yours.
Yeah, man, just everyone a part of my camp. I made a small circle for a reason. I'm not trying to shut people out because I dislike them. It's just I want to focus on my career right now. But everyone supported me. Jose Shorty Torres on Instagram, Shorty Torres MMA on Twitter and Facebook. And if people want to support my foundation, the Team Shorty Foundation, the website is called teamshorty.com. 100% of the proceeds go to the kids, teens, and young adults in my neighborhood and around the country to buy them gear, to pay for their gym subscriptions, to get them out of the out of the neighborhood, out of the streets, and get them inside the gym in a public area where, they could be around positive, reinforcement, a positive environment, mentors, male or female father figures or mother figures. So I'm really trying my best to pick this up. Team Shorty Foundation, all social media platforms, teamshorty.com if people want to learn more about it. And that's why I always say we will together. We are Team Shorty.